My boyfriend's mother knelt before my entire family, begging us to accept a dowry of just 50,000 yuan. Our family's hearts softened, and we agreed to forego the dowry entirely. I even married him with a substantial bridal trousseau. His whole family moved into the house I brought as part of my dowry, living off my money. But after I became pregnant, their true colors showed. They called me a whore, a bitch, accusing me of forcing my own mother-in-law to her knees and saying I'd be indebted to her for the rest of my life. I, who had never lifted a finger to do a day's work in my life, was forced to wait on their entire family, enduring all kinds of torment and stripped of all dignity. When I decided to divorce him, they cursed me for being ungrateful, beat me savagely, and threw me down from the upper floor. They told the police I had jumped due to postpartum depression, seized all my assets, and then he married a young, beautiful woman, living happily ever after. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn. Right at the moment my boyfriend's mother was kneeling before me, begging. I'm just a useless old woman. I've toiled my whole life and still can't come up with such a large bride price. All I can do is kneel before your family, in-laws. I know your family isn't the mercenary sort. Could you, for the sake of my kneeling here, please lower the dowry demand? Dressed in worn-out clothes, Jiaofan knelt on the ground, her body hunched over as she pleaded with our family. In utter humility, my boyfriend, Lily, stood to the side, his eyes reddening as he watched his mother debase herself so completely for the sake of his marriage. Seeing such a familiar scene, my heart skipped a beat. I've been reborn on this very day, the one I've longed to return to in countless midnight dreams in my previous life. At this exact moment, I had secured a spot for graduate school without taking the entrance exam, and Lily had just proposed to me. I told him I wanted to wait until after graduation to get married. He vowed that it would just be a simple ceremony, that I could continue my studies, and that he would handle all the practical matters so it wouldn't affect me in the slightest. I agreed. I went home to discuss it with my parents, then ran excitedly to find Lily and told him my family was prepared to give me 2 apartments and 2 cars as my dowry. His eyes lit up with uncontrollable excitement, but the moment I mentioned the 50,000 yuan bride price, the smile instantly froze on his face. He stammered that he needed to go home and discuss it with his mother. The result of that discussion was his mother coming to my house to kneel. Not long after the wedding, I was about to go back to school when I found out I was pregnant. Both Lily and Jiaofan urged me to stay, saying I couldn't just kill my own child for the sake of an education. I had no choice but to take a leave of absence to carry the pregnancy to term, but I was utterly confused because we had used protection every single time. Later, by chance, I overheard the truth. Lily's promise that nothing would hold me back was just a lie to trick me into marrying him sooner, so he could get his hands on my dowry. My pregnancy wasn't an accident. He had poked holes in the condoms with a needle, a way to tighten his control over me, but at the time, I just accepted it as a twist of fate. As my belly grew, they thought they had me firmly under their thumb and dropped the act completely. Jiaofan dumped all the housework on me while she went out every day to dance and play mahjong with the old folks. If she came home and didn't see a lavish meal on the table, she'd curse me out with all sorts of nasty insults. Lily kept pestering me for my premarital savings, claiming he needed it to start a business, and each time he asked for more than the last. Later, after I pressed him for the truth, he confessed that he had racked up a huge debt from online gambling before we got married. The world seemed to spin around me. I told him in no uncertain terms that I would never pay off his gambling debts. Without a word, he kicked me to the ground, pinned me down by sitting on my stomach, and began slapping me repeatedly. Jiaofan stood by, clapping and cheering him on. She said this was exactly how to deal with me, or else I'd start walking all over them. Fearing for my child's safety, I had no choice but to give it to him. After my baby was born, I held him to nurse. But my milk wasn't enough, and he wailed and cried. Jiaofan had originally brought the old man she met dancing to show off her big, chubby grandson. Seeing my insufficient milk, she started criticizing me for not being able to feed her precious grandson properly. I didn't want a strange old man watching me breastfeed. Ashamed, I tried to pull my clothes down, but she stopped me, sneering that I was putting on airs and acting shy even after becoming a mother. The old man stared, unblinking, right at my chest, out of the corner of her eye. The spittle-flecked Jiaofan caught sight of it. Her eyes instantly blazed with fury. Panting heavily, she reached out and viciously pinched my milk-swollen breast, her face twisted with jealous contempt as she spat out her words. What's the use of having such a big pair of tits if you can't even feed your own child? They're only good for luring men. Might as well cut them off. The pain made me cry out. Tears streamed down my face, but with the baby in my arms, I couldn't break free from her grip. My cry only stoked her fury. Her hands, hardened by years of labor, tightened their grip with even more force. Oh, so you're putting on a show now, are you, you shameless little slut? crying out like a cat in heat just because there are men around. I'll give you something to cry about. In my struggle, I pulled up my C-section incision, the pain so intense I nearly convulsed. During my postpartum confinement, Jiaofan forced me to drink all sorts of lactation-promoting soups with every single meal. I simply couldn't stomach that bland, unseasoned broth and wanted to add just a pinch of salt. Upon hearing me, she swept the bowl onto the floor, wailing hysterically and berating me for being ungrateful for all her hard work making the soup, only to be met with my pickiness. In the middle of her tirade, her eyes darted slyly, and she plopped herself right down on my surgical incision. My incision was healing slowly from round the clock breastfeeding, and her deliberate act caused it to split open again. The pain was so intense I couldn't even scream. I broke out in a cold sweat and nearly blacked out. Seeing me in that state, she swaggered away with a smug, self-satisfied wiggle. You little bitch, you and your worthless parents were so high and mighty back then, weren't you? Flaunting your family's money, putting on airs, forcing me to kneel before your family. Did you think that because I knelt for you once, you could walk all over me forever? Well, look at you now. You born our family's child, you're damaged goods. No one but my son would want you now. However, I, a simple country woman, decide to deal with you. You stuck-up city girl will just have to take it. Under her torment, not only did my surgical incision fail to heal, but it began to show signs of festering. One night, after Jiaofan had fed the child snacks, he wouldn't stop crying. No matter how I tried to soothe him, nothing worked. Lily, annoyed by the noise, told me to get out and take the child to the living room. The child kept on crying. Lily stormed over to me, slapped me across the face, and started screaming. Can't even calm a crying child down. What the hell did I marry you for? The noise is giving me a splitting headache. Damn it. I had planned to ask him for a divorce after my postpartum confinement, but I couldn't take it anymore in that moment. I blurted out that I wanted a divorce, that I was taking the child, and that they needed to get out of my house. The mother and son, who had been leisurely enjoying my pained expression, instantly changed their faces. It was as if they were watching an otherwise perfectly obedient dog suddenly turn on them. Without a word, Lily charged at me and started punching and kicking. You want a divorce after just a couple of slaps? You think you can get away with that? I'll beat you to death. Is there another man? I always said she was a slut, son. You've been too soft on her, spoiled her rotten until she forgot her place. He was blinded by rage. Only when he was too exhausted to continue did he stop and realize he had beaten me to within an inch of my life, and he began to panic. Jiaofan gave him an idea. Just kill her and say it was suicide. That little bitch is vicious. If she wakes up, she'll definitely throw us mother and son out and try to take my grandson away. Son, you're a man, don't be soft-hearted. Lily listened to his mother. He threw me from the building, then tearfully told the police I had postpartum depression, had attempted suicide several times, and that they just hadn't watched me closely enough this time. Pretending to be utterly grief-stricken, they had me cremated, seized all my assets, quit their jobs, tricked a beautiful young woman into marriage, and began living a life of constant travel, happiness, and bliss. Too, the memory faded, and I snapped back to the present, seeing Jiaofan kneeling. My parents hurriedly urged her to get up. Please, get up, the bride price is just a formality. As long as the two young people truly love each other. Then, seeing my parents relent, Lily and Jiaofan's faces lit up with joy, practically willing my parents to send me off with a hefty dowry to marry Lily. The very next second, I quickly cut off my parents before they could say another word, turning to Lily and his mother with a perfectly understanding smile. Since the bride price is such a hardship for your family, the smug looks on their faces grew even more pronounced, only to shatter completely the very next second. Then I won't force you into this marriage. Let's break up. I'll find someone who can afford the 50,000. What? Both Lily and Jiaofan were stunned. Lily stepped forward, grabbed my hand, and explained in a fluster, Baby, that's not what I meant. I'm not saying I won't marry you. So, you just want to marry me without spending a single penny, is that it? I explained on his behalf. With the utmost consideration he widened his eyes, feigning innocence as he defended himself. Marriage is pure and sacred. Why would we let a feudal relic like a bride price tarnish what we have? I let out a cold laugh and pulled my hand away. Tainted. Fine. Then my family won't be preparing a dowry either. Then, turning to my parents, I said, why don't you give the car, money, and house you saved for me to my cousin instead? Isn't he working all those odd jobs right now to save up for the bride price to marry his rich girlfriend? I made that up on the spot. But both Lily and Jiaofan shrieked in unison, that's completely unacceptable. Lily clenched his fist, his face a mask of fury, but instantly realized his blunder and opened his mouth to backtrack. As for Jiaofan, I'd been too nice to her for too long. seeing I wasn't falling in line, she panicked and turned on my parents with a dark, accusatory glare. Just look at the attitude of these city girls. Utterly spoiled, I tell you, such a princess mentality, she just decides to withhold the dowry that was already agreed upon, living the high life herself, yet so stingy towards her own husband, in-laws. If everyone raised their daughters the way you do, families with sons like ours would be getting the short end of the stick. My parents had actually thought quite highly of Xiaofen before, but hearing those words, their faces immediately darkened. Our family has provided such a generous dowry, yet you won't even offer 50,000 in bride price. You come to our home on your knees, and then have the nerve to say my daughter is spoiled. You've got no shame at all. Seeing my parents' anger, Lily quickly pulled Xiaofen aside and offered an apologetic smile. That's not what my mom meant, sweetheart. You know my situation isn't great. I can't give you a good life right now, and the thought of you living in a rented apartment and taking cabs with me, it breaks my heart. You should still take the dowry. Just wait for me. I promise I'll give you a better life when I have the money. Realizing her blunder, Xiaofen scrambled to her feet, rushed over to me, and dropped to her knees with a thud. She started slapping her own face and kowtowing. It's all my fault, this useless old woman. I'm not capable like your parents. I can't earn enough to give you young newlyweds a good life. It's all on me, all my fault. I'm begging you on my knees. If you're angry, take it out on me. I can bear any humiliation, any grievance, as long as you two are okay, as long as you and he are happy together. All the while she cried, her narrow, upturned eyes were watching my reaction. Lily chimed in right on cue. Darling, be good, let's not be angry anymore. My mother is so old, how can you bear to watch her kneel there and kowtow like that? I just found it laughable. In my past life, he would always lament with profound anguish, emphasizing how much it pained him to see his mother, a woman who had toiled her whole life, forced to kneel and kowtow for her son's marriage, as if subjected to the greatest humiliation. I told them I'm calling off the wedding, but they wouldn't take no for an answer. They even resorted to kowtowing. If I married him, he'd probably be even more devoted to his mother right in front of me, but too bad for him, he won't get that chance. I looked down at Xiaofen from my position of superiority. What, are your knees made of gold? Or do you think you're some big shot, and I'm supposed to marry your useless son just because you get on your knees? Pfft, who do you think you are? You, Xiaofen never expected me, who had always been filial to her, to say such things. Her face turned ashen, pointing a trembling finger at me. She was left speechless, her lips quivering with rage. Lily frowned and rebuked me sharply. How dare you speak to my mother like that? She's your elder. I turned and directed my fire at him. Elder, you know she's my elder, but do you even know she's your own mother? Useless fool. You're getting married, yet you make your mother kneel before your girlfriend's family. You've been working for so long, eating my food, using my things, and you still can't save a single penny. What's next? Every time you need money, you'll just drag your mother out to kneel and beg. Even a dog knows how to wag its tail for its owner. Your mother raised you all these years, and her reward is having to kneel everywhere like a beggar for you. How do you even have the face to keep living in this world? You'd be better off dead. I crossed my arms and sneered contemptuously. His face twitched uncontrollably several times in rage. He clenched his jaw so hard the veins bulged on his forehead. It took him a good while to finally force out a smile. Honey, you're being way too emotional today. I'm going to head out for now. I'll come back when you've calmed down. Okay. With that, he quickly took his mother's arm and left. After closing the door, I checked the security camera at my front door. On the monitor, his mother was screaming, her face twisted with rage. Wasn't this little bitch easy to fool before? What's gotten into her today? She's suddenly become so sharp. Look at that arrogant attitude of hers. She doesn't have a shred of respect for me, her mother-in-law. Just wait until she's in our hands. I'll make her life a living hell, he said with a dark, impatient expression. I don't care how you deal with her after the wedding, but until I've tricked her into marrying me, you have to be nice to her. What if you scare her off? Alright, I'll listen to you, son. I'll wait until you've gotten her pregnant before I start training her. I'll grind that spoiled little princess attitude right out of her. I'll have her tamed and more obedient than a dog. The two of them gradually walked away, their voices fading. I let out a cold laugh and turned off the surveillance. You want to mess with me? Let's see who ends up on top this time around. 3 early the next morning, I received an apology text from him. Baby, I'm so sorry for upsetting you yesterday, Mom, and I brought you some treats. Could you please open the door? Talk about being adaptable. I had slept in my own small apartment. When I went to the door and looked through the peephole, I saw him standing outside with Xiaofen. He was holding fruit and a cake, while Xiaofen had one hand on her stomach, Frowning with an impatient look on her face, I gave a slight smile and opened the door. After all, for the sake of the plan, I couldn't afford to burn all bridges with him just yet. The moment the door opened, Xiaofan looked at me with a beaming smile, as if performing a Peking opera face change, while he took a pitiful step forward. Good girl, Auntie knew you weren't the petty type, sweetheart. I'm so glad you can forgive me. The two of them sat down on my sofa as if it were their own home. Then, Xiaofan clutched her stomach, her face twisted in misery, and she looked at me with a heavy sigh. In my previous life, at this very moment, I saw Xiaofan clutching her stomach in pain and had a hunch it was appendicitis. I told Lily, but he dismissed it. I insisted on taking Xiaofan to the hospital for an examination. I arranged a full battery of tests for her. The tests confirmed it was indeed appendicitis, and they also uncovered other health issues she had. I immediately contacted specialists to schedule the surgery, which resolved her appendicitis and other issues. I also secured a premium hospital room for her and hired a top-tier private nurse. Thanks to my meticulous arrangements, she recovered very quickly, but now, I acted as if I hadn't seen anything and just kept watching TV. Seeing that I wasn't reacting, she rolled her eyes and spoke up with a tone of quiet resentment. Oh, I'm just a useless old woman. My body keeps acting up every few days. I'd be better off dead sooner rather than later, so I don't keep being a burden to you young folks. Her meaning was crystal clear, but I pretended not to hear, keeping my eyes glued to the TV. Seeing I still hadn't reacted, her face fell. Are you still upset with me? I'm just a country woman. I don't have a way with words. You're a city girl. Don't hold a grudge against an old country bumpkin like me. Lily also spoke up in Xiaofan's defense. That's right, sweetie. Think about how good my mom was to you before. Hearing this, I pretended as if I had just caught on. Huh, what are you all talking about? I was just watching TV. My words left her speechless. She took a deep breath and replied with a sarcastic tone. Oh, so you didn't hear me. I just told you I wasn't feeling well, and since you didn't react at all, I thought you were hoping I'd drop dead. With a look that said, now you'll have to take me to the hospital, won't you? I let out a gasp, hoping you'd die. Good heavens, so that's what this is about. Then, I turned and slapped Lily hard across the face. Didn't you hear? You don't even care that your own mother is unwell, so you're just hoping she'll die. Is that it, you beast? I was wrong about you. He had been watching smugly as his mother tried to guilt-trip me, certain I would take her to the hospital. My slap left him utterly stunned. Seeing me slap her precious son, Xiaofan jumped up in a panic, slapped her own thigh hard, pointed a finger at my nose, and shrieked, I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you. Why are you hitting my son? What does a grown man like him even understand? Hearing her words, I turned around and slapped Lily several more times. Look at yourself. What kind of son are you? Your own mother wanted to die, and she only dared to ask for help from someone like me, who isn't even related to her by blood. What on earth have you done to make your own mother afraid to rely on you? If I get sick after marrying you, will I have to turn to outsiders for help too? Huh? Standing on my moral high ground, I screamed at him, spittle flying from my mouth. Hearing this, he panicked, clutching his reddened cheek. He turned and shouted at Xiaofan, Mom, if you weren't feeling well, you should have told me earlier. You deliberately waited until now to say it. She's definitely going to misunderstand me. I think you're losing your marbles. Xiaofan, who had been ready to blow her top, was instantly cowed by his outburst. Yes, I am getting senile. My son is the one who cares about me the most, who treats me the best. I feigned a look of half-belief. Oh, really? Then why are you still sitting here? He quickly stood up, took Xiaofan by the arm, and said goodbye to me. I'll take her to the hospital right now. Sweetie, don't forget to eat your fruit. Xiaofan was being dragged out against her will, still looking at me with a pleading gaze, hoping I would follow to pay. You should come too. There's safety in numbers. Hearing this, he slowed his pace and looked at me tentatively. I raised my hand as if to slap him, then cried out in disbelief. I bet you've never taken your mom to the hospital, have you? The reason she wants me to come along is probably because she doesn't trust you to handle it. He quickly grabbed Xiaofan and they scurried off in a flash. Watching their retreating figures, I tossed the junk they brought into the trash. A selfish and cold person like him, I don't believe for a second he'd actually take his mother for a checkup. For a few mornings later, I was still asleep when I received a call from Lily. Hey, baby. My mom has acute appendicitis and needs surgery now, but I have something urgent at work and can't get to the hospital. Can you go and stay with her for me? The moment I heard that, I knew he hadn't taken Xiaofan to the hospital that day. He must have waited until it got really bad before he had no choice. Now, saying he's busy is just a trick to get me, the sucker, to go to the hospital and pay for the surgery. I pretended to gasp in shock. Oh no, that's terrible, but I can't come back right now. I'm in Korea on vacation, and my return flight isn't for several more days. Korea, what are you doing there? How much did that cost? You're about to get married, and you're still spending money so recklessly. He completely lost it, already treating my money as his own. By the earliest flight back right now. I'm telling you again, my mom's condition is really serious. I was so infuriated by his entitled tone that I could only laugh. I just flew over here, and you're telling me to come back already. You and your mother have some nerve, he asked, utterly bewildered, weren't you? Always so devoted to my mother before, you'd always think of her when you had something good, buying her piles of supplements. Now, for something as major as her surgery, how can you, as her daughter-in-law, bear to leave her alone in the hospital? If you, her own son, aren't worried, why should I, someone with no blood relation to her, get involved? If you think your lousy job is more important than your own mother, why can't I think my trip and a woman I'm not related to are important? I hung up the phone immediately after saying that. A few minutes later, his call came through again. Is there anything else you need to say? I'm going to hang up now, I said impatiently to avoid paying for the surgery himself. He adjusted his attitude, becoming incredibly gentle. I'm sorry, baby, I was wrong to treat you that way. I was just so worried about my mom's condition that I didn't consider your feelings. The thing is, she doesn't have health insurance, and the surgery will cost at least 10,000 yuan. In the past, whenever he even hinted at being short on money, I would transfer him some to spare his fragile ego, but now, I pretended not to catch his drift. Then why didn't you get her health insurance? Your mother really raised you for nothing. I forgot about it before, let's not dwell on that now. Honey, I'm strapped for cash, but my mom needs this surgery immediately. What do you mean, let's not dwell on that? Do you think money just flows out of a tap the moment your mom gets sick? Could you grow up and plan for the future a little? What did your mother do in a past life to deserve a useless son like you? Wasn't he the one who loved to guilt-trip me in the past, always saying I wronged his mother, that I wasn't good enough to her? Now it's his turn to get a taste of his own medicine. A harsh grinding of teeth came through the phone line. It took him a long moment to compose himself. It's my fault. Baby, you can yell at me all you want later, but my mom needs money for her surgery right now. Could you please transfer the money to me first? I let out a cold snort. You have the nerve to ask me for money, because of the last time you and your mom came to my house to make a scene over that 50,000 betrothal gift. My parents forbade me from seeing you. They even set me up on a blind date. He panicked instantly. You can't listen to your parents. They definitely want to marry you off to some nouveau riche who can pay a huge dowry. Those types are always old and ugly. You'd regret it for sure. I blurted out. Exactly. I told my parents I was determined to marry you, so they froze my cards. I used my savings to go to South Korea, and my last bit of cash bought the plane ticket. How about you wire me some money? Honey, the doctor is asking for the family. I'm going to go find them first. The moment he heard I needed money, he rushed to hang up. After a brief pause, he quietly added one more sentence. Sweetheart, you might not realize it yourself, but you're really not as understanding as you used to be. I still prefer the kind, considerate you from before, so not letting him leech off me means I'm not understanding. I rolled my eyes and hung up the phone directly. I took a nap on the comfortable big bed at home, slept until dusk, then got up, got myself ready, picked up my suitcase, pretended I had just rushed back from out of town, and took a taxi to the hospital. When I arrived, Jiaofan seemed to have just woken up from the anesthesia and was softly moaning in pain. How is she doing? I rushed into the ward, pretending to be frantic with worry. Lily, looking thoroughly annoyed, saw the shock on my face. Weren't you abroad? I thought you weren't coming back. I shot him a glare. I only said that because I was upset. How could I not come back when Auntie is sick? Oh, it hurts so much. My life is so miserable. To suffer like this at my age. Seeing me arrive, Jiaofan began to wail loudly. Lily's face grew even more impatient. Mom, crying out in pain won't help anything. Jiaofan stared straight at me, her eyes filled with hope. It's just my bad luck. An old woman like me. Everyone else gets a pain pump after surgery, but I have to grit my teeth and bear the pain. Oh, it hurts so much. My life is so hard. Oh, so she wants me to pay for a pain pump for her. In my previous life, after my C-section, the pain was unbearable. Yet she wouldn't let me use a pain pump. She pulled open my clothes, ignoring my face pale with pain, shoved the heavy baby into my arms, and told me to nurse it, all the while muttering incessantly, an epidural, who doesn't feel pain giving birth? You're just being delicate. You're a mother now, and all you think about is your own comfort. Besides, pumping something like that into your body is definitely harmful. Why would you waste money on something with no benefit? now she wants it, she can dream on. I took a step forward, smiling as I tried to soothe her. Auntie, that pain pump is no good for you. It can be harmful to your body. You're better off just toughing it out. Those were her own words, but when I said them back to her, she flew into a rage. Harmful, my foot, you're just being selfish and stingy, making up lies to trick an old woman like me. If it were harmful, would the hospital even give it to patients? Ha, so she knew all along. That old woman is just plain wicked. She said all that in one breath, and the pain in her body grew worse. Seeing that I had no intention of adding it for her, she turned her head and pleaded with Lily in a meek, submissive tone, "Be a good son, please get your mom a pain pump. I'm in agony." He frowned and refused. "I can't, Mom. The surgery alone cost over 10,000. Where would I get the money for a pain pump? I've seen plenty of elderly people manage without one. You'll just have to tough it out." He then turned to look at me and said gently, "You must be hungry. Let me take you to get something to eat." I nodded. Before leaving the ward, I glanced at Jiaofan lying in the hospital bed. Because it had been delayed for so long, her appendix had ruptured. Even though the surgery was over, a drainage tube was still inserted in her abdomen. Her lips were dry and chapped. As the anesthesia wore off, the pain kept her frozen in the same position, her face a mask of despair after her beloved son refused the additional pain pump. To an uninformed observer, she would look quite pitiful, but at this moment, I was desperately holding back, trying not to laugh out loud. 5. During the meal, he kept complaining to me about how much of a hassle it was to take care of his mother, and that he had to work the next day, so he simply had no energy left to look after her. I gave him a knowing, understanding smile. "Don't worry about going to work. I can't help you financially, but looking after your aunt, that I can handle." He grabbed my hand in delight, babbling on about how wonderful I was and how he knew I still loved him. Watching Lily, who looked as if a great burden had been lifted from his shoulders, I laughed silently to myself. "I should be the one thanking you. Thank you for giving me the chance to get my own revenge." After the meal, Lily left to rest, and I went straight to the hospital. 6. Jiaofan was stunned to see me return empty-handed. "What about food? You went out to eat. Why didn't you bring anything back for me?" I tilted my head, feigning surprise. "Auntie, you just had surgery, you can't eat anything. I didn't bring you any food." Probably seeing that I had flown back from Korea for her, she figured her son had me completely under his thumb. She dropped the act of being a gentle mother-in-law and started yelling at me outright. "The doctor specifically said I should have something light like congee. I haven't eaten in ages. Are you trying to starve me to death? And you call yourself a college student? You're utterly clueless." I rolled my eyes at that. "The doctor gave those instructions to your son. If he can't be bothered, that's not my problem. If anyone's clueless, it's your son. My son is brilliant. He's destined for great things. He shouldn't have to bother with menial tasks like this. You're practically part of the family, so you should know your place. If you don't step up, don't even think about marrying into this household. Now go buy me some congee, the kind with abalone, and fetch warm water to wipe me down, right now. Hurry up." I found the old woman on the bed, putting on such airs as a mother-in-law. Utterly ridiculous. When her son was around, she didn't even dare to groan too loudly, but with me, she's all bossy and arrogant, acting as if marrying into their family made me their servant. Her foolish son at least has a shred of sense, knowing I could marry a man with better prospects anytime, but she is brimming with confidence in her son's charm, convinced I'm hopelessly devoted to him. To satisfy her demand, I walked to the nightstand, picked up a cup of long cold water, and without a moment's hesitation, poured it all over her under her bewildered gaze. Ah, the icy water jolted her upright in bed, and she let out a furious, shrieking scream. "You little bitch, how dare you throw water on me? I'm your mother-in-law, how could you? I'm telling my son you're trying to kill me." Aawiwa. I called her son directly. "Hey, what's wrong, sweetie?" Before I could even say a word, she was already rushing to tattle on me. "Son, she's trying to kill your mother, she won't feed me. And she's throwing ice water on me. You come here right now and teach her a lesson. Beat her senseless." As she spoke, she looked at me smugly, her eyes silently saying, "My son is coming to deal with you. Let's see what you do now." But all I heard on the other end of the line was her son's impatient voice. "Did she fly all the way back from Korea just to kill you? Give it a rest. I have work tomorrow." Then, his tone softened as he called out to me, "Baby, don't mind my mom, the anesthesia messed with her head. I know you're not that kind of person. Get some rest early tonight, okay?" Her face went deathly pale. Not only had her future daughter-in-law wronged her, but her own son, who had always taken her side, was now blaming her. I looked down at her with a gaze full of contempt and provocation, yet my voice on the phone was dripping with feigned hurt. "I'm so glad you believe me. Auntie is probably just irritable from the post-surgery pain, that's all. I don't blame her, you get some rest. I'll do my best to take good care of her. She was shaking with rage, her face twisted in fury as she struggled to get up from the bed to hit me. What kind of poison have you been feeding my son? If he won't hit you, I will. I'll show you, you little city girl. You think I can't handle you? She looked exactly the same as she did in my past life when she beat me, but this time, I wasn't weak and vulnerable from childbirth. At her mercy, I reached out and gave the drainage tube. Inserted in her abdomen a sharp tug, Aawaha. That scream sounded far more agonizing than the one from having cold water thrown on her. She instantly curled up in pain, unable to even cry out. Her scream brought a nurse running. What's going on? This is a hospital. You can't make such a racket. You'll disturb the other patients. Seeing the nurse, it was as if she had seen a savior. Help me. This bitch is trying to kill me. She threw cold water on me and yanked out my tubes. You can't just stand by and let this happen. The nurse frowned at me after hearing this. I pinched my thigh to squeeze out a few tears, putting on the perfect act of a poor, bullied daughter-in-law. I'm so sorry you had to see that. My boyfriend's mother was demanding a huge, greasy meal. I tried to explain that she just had surgery and can't eat that, and asked if porridge would be okay. She said I was deliberately starving her. Then she knocked the water I poured for her out of my hand, tried to get up to hit me, and ended up pulling her own tubes out. Now she's blaming me for it. Honestly, being a daughter-in-law is no easy job. The nurse in front of me immediately picked up on the word daughter-in-law and gave me a knowing look. Oh, so many elderly patients in the hospital are like this. They're all meek and mild in front of their own sons, but the moment their daughter-in-law shows up, boom, they turn into an emperor, picking faults here, complaining there, as if the daughter-in-law owes them something. My own mother-in-law is the same. Always finding fault with me at home, trying to drive a wedge between me and my husband. Anyway, I need to go remove IVs for other patients. I'll be off now. Before leaving, the nurse heard Jaufan hurling all sorts of nasty insults at me and said with a tone of helpless resignation, Auntie, this young lady isn't even married to your son yet, and she's still willing to come take care of you. That's already very good of her. You just had surgery. You can't be eating all that greasy, salty food. Older folks should listen to the younger generation more, and not make a fuss all the time. Your health is your own responsibility, you know that, right? As soon as the nurse left, I crouched down, looking at her with a triumphant face, and spoke in a voice only the two of us could hear. You old hag, open your beady eyes wide and see who would believe a word you say. Her face twisted with rage. She gritted her teeth in hatred and reached out to slap me. I caught her hand, but instead of pushing it away, I forced it to slap my own face even harder under her stunned gaze. I stood up, took a selfie of the slap mark on my face, sent it to Lily, and then followed it up with a tearful voice message. Your mom is really too much. Just because I suggested she eat something lighter, she knocked the water I poured for her out of my hand and slapped me. She even said that because I flew back from Korea for you. I'm just a dog that's hopelessly devoted to you. No matter how she hits me, I won't leave. Is that really what you think? That I'm just some pathetic simp who's genuinely in love with you? I went against my own family to be with you, and this is how you treat me. I'm so disappointed in you. We're done. He was probably asleep at this hour. As expected, I turned off my phone and said to her, dripping with malice, you old hag, just wait until your son deals with you tomorrow. Then, he hooked her drainage tube with his foot. Watching her plunge back into agony, he gave a faint smile and turned to leave. 7. The next morning, I woke up to find my phone flooded with missed calls and messages from Lily. I scrolled through them casually. They were all frantic attempts to explain his true feelings. I let out a cold laugh and called him back. Hey, baby, you finally picked up. Everything my mom said yesterday was just her own nonsense. I swear I didn't mean any of it. I'm just a guy. I don't get all that complicated stuff. All I know is that I love you, nothing else. Oh. Really, even if you don't think that way, your mom does. If I married you, she'd make my life a living hell every single day. She wouldn't, baby. Trust me, she'll be good to you. I promise. Especially if you were to have my baby, she'd treat you like royalty. And you want me to get pregnant just to please your mother? I let out a cold laugh. You have zero credibility left with me. I know you've already made your choice between me and your mother. Maybe I really should listen to my parents and marry one of the people they've introduced me to. At least their mothers wouldn't treat me like this. With that, I hung up the phone. Meanwhile, on the other end of the line, trust me, son, do as your mother says, get her pregnant with a boy first, and everything will be much easier. Jaufan lay in the hospital bed, her face a mask of calculation Lily had been hung up on. He turned a dark, sullen look toward her. And she was even pregnant with your son, thanks to your meddling. She's now Thinking about marrying someone else, the angrier he got, the louder he shouted. He kicked the four-stand violently, and Jaffin flinched hard at the sudden movement. I'm starting to think you did it on purpose. How many times have I told you to be nice to her until she's in the bag? Are you deaf? Huh, no, son, I'm your mother. How could I not want what's best for you? That wretched girl, she's just putting on an act. She flew all the way back from abroad. She's head over heels for you. She's just playing hard to get, trying to get one over on me. That's why she's threatening to break up with you. Don't fall for her tricks. He was absolutely livid when he heard that. Playing hard to get. Her parents can't stand me. She's not carrying my son, and she's always been easily swayed. If her parents talk her into marrying someone else, who the hell is going to pay off my gambling debts? He glared at her with pure venom, as if she were his mortal enemy. After you're discharged, go straight to a nursing home. Don't come back and mess up my plans. No, please, son, I was wrong. The people in those nursing homes treat the elderly like they're not even human. I won't go to a place like that, Jaffin pleaded, her face etched with fear, but Lily simply shook off her hand and walked away briskly. I got a call from Lily. Honey, I'm thinking of putting my mom in a nursing home. That way, after we get married, you won't have to take care of your mother-in-law. Happy, isn't that a bit not good? She is your mother, after all. What's wrong with that? You're the love of my life. I'd do anything to make you happy. His voice oozed with sickening flattery over the phone, and in the very next moment, he couldn't wait to reveal his true intentions. Sweetheart, look, I even sent my own mother to a nursing home for you. Why don't we pick a good time to go get our marriage license? I really want to get married too, but I put on a deeply troubled expression, but my parents would never agree. I'd need time to convince them. Let's not go through all that trouble. We can just go get the marriage license in secret. Your parents will have to accept it whether they like it or not. He was trying to tempt me, but I still want to try. If my parents are completely unyielding, then I'll marry you in secret. With things having reached this point, no matter how anxious he was, he couldn't say anything more. All right, but you have to hurry. Okay, I really can't wait to marry you. After hanging up, I packed my things, left my little apartment, and moved back in with my parents. The security there is excellent. He can't get in without my permission now. I'll just let him stew. He's in so much debt that if I just leave him to his own devices, he'll reap what he's sown. 9. Sure enough, within a few days, he started calling me constantly, asking when I was going to marry him. His tone grew increasingly aggressive, so I simply stopped answering his calls. The security guard for my building even called to tell me that a man claiming to be my boyfriend had been loitering outside my door for several days in a row. Insisting on seeing me, I told the security guard straight up that we had broken up and to just kick him out if he saw him again. A few days later, I got a text from him asking me to dinner. He said he shouldn't have rushed me into marriage, that he missed me and wanted to see me. Reading that message, a scene from my past life suddenly flashed into my mind. Back then, in my 3rd trimester, I was sleeping terribly. I jolted awake in the middle of the night and faintly heard him on the phone in the living room. I crept up to the bedroom door. Man, you're just too naive. No matter how impressive your girlfriend is, she's still just a woman. Once you get her pregnant, no matter how much she's threatened to break up with you before, she'll have to marry you. She already got rid of the baby, and she's still insisting on breaking up. That's cold, but look, you should have at least faked it, if you just pretended until the baby was born. A mother could never be heartless enough to let her child grow up without a father. Her family's loaded. It'd be a real shame to let her go. Tell you what, I've got a plan. Ask to meet her one last time, slip her something, record it secretly, and then use the video later. Have to threaten her, have to sweet talk her. No matter how tough she acts, she's still a woman. Could she really handle being called damaged goods? If you just smooth things over afterwards, she'll listen. A woman's reputation is everything. Hey, no need to thank me, just remember to buy me a drink when the time comes, and don't forget, once you're married, get her pregnant right away, keep her firmly under your thumb, and all her family's wealth will be yours. A chill instantly ran down my spine. The next day, I quietly found the guy's girlfriend and subtly warned her that her boyfriend was planning something bad, urging her to leave him immediately. And now, he's realized I'm not so easy to control anymore, so he's trying to use the same method to manipulate me. I was about to block his number too, but then I thought of something. A slight smile touched my lips as I replied with a simple okay. 10. On the day of our dinner, I arrived at the restaurant to find him already there, waiting with a bouquet of roses and looking at me with a pitiful expression. Baby, please don't be mad at me, okay? I was only pushing because I love you. I won't pressure you about marriage anymore. I took the flowers from him and let out a sigh. I'm glad you've come to see it that way, he eagerly handed me a drink. You must be tired from the walk. Here, have a sip, it's really good. I took it and drank it down. Ahem, cough, cough. The moment the drink touched my lips, I pretended to choke and started coughing incessantly. Go find a server and get me more napkins, quick. I frowned and urged him on. Without a second thought, he got up and left. I quickly swapped our drinks. It was quite a while before he came back with a napkin, grumbling as he handed it to me. 3 yuan for a single pack of napkins. That server is a total rip-off. I should have known better than to eat here. I took the tissue, wiped my hands carefully, and then started eating. Seeing that I hadn't continued drinking, he grew anxious and asked, "Sweetie, why aren't you drinking this? I bought it especially for you. I saw you weren't drinking much, so I thought it didn't taste good." I explained, "Not at all. I was just worried you might choke on your drink and feel unwell." As he said this, he picked up his drink and downed it in one go, deliberately putting on an expression of enjoyment, holding back a laugh. I also picked up my glass and finished it in one sip. It really is good." Seeing the empty bottom of my glass, he couldn't help but let a triumphant smile spread across his face. Before long, an unnatural flush spread across his face, and his consciousness began to blur. I took his phone, downloaded a gay dating app, found a few tall, imposing, muscular tops, and sent them messages in a desperate tone, giving them his home address. Then, I helped him into a cab and took him to his place. Once at his apartment, I moved him onto the bed, undressed him, and arranged him in a suggestive pose. Using his phone, I ordered items like candles and a whip, placing them by the bedside. Then, I left his front door slightly ajar and departed. 11. I found a coffee shop at the foot of his building, had a coffee, waited for a few hours, and then went back up to his apartment. As I reached the stairwell, I saw a few men with deeply satisfied expressions leaving. I quickened my pace to his door. The moment I opened it, a strange, pungent smell hit me. He was lying on the bed, barely conscious, muttering "no, stop," over and over. The entire room, the sheets, the floor, even the walls, were stained with white and yellow smears. I filled a basin with cold water and threw it in his face. That snapped him back to full consciousness. He looked at me with a face full of panic and pain, shouting, "Help me, quick." He then looked around, saw no one was there, and let out a sigh of relief. But the moment he saw the mocking smile on my face, he realized what was happening. It was you, wasn't it? You sent these men. I'm gonna kill you." Enraged, he lunged at me, but the instant his feet touched the ground, his legs gave way and he collapsed. Seeing him completely naked and covered in awful marks, the thrill of vengeance swelled in my chest, and I couldn't help but burst into laughter. How does it feel to be loved so roughly by men? When I walked in, I heard them planning to come back for you in a few days. Are you happy? As I spoke, I looked him over with contempt. You always looked down on those who bottom, didn't you? But you seem to be having quite a good time. Deep down, you actually love being treated this way, don't you? He was a man who placed immense value on his own masculinity. He was hypersensitive to words like short or thin. Seeing flamboyantly dressed gay men, he would often sneer that they were a disgrace to manhood, shamelessly spreading their legs for other men like women, utterly vile and unworthy of being called men. Hearing my words now, he was so furious he was on the verge of passing out. "You little bitch, just you wait. I'm calling the cops to have you all arrested, you bunch of drugging R.A." The word rapist stuck in his throat, choked off by his wounded pride, his face flushing crimson with the effort. I kindly supplied the word for him. "So you're the rapist, huh? Go ahead and report me. I'm not scared at all. After all, my phone has no record of buying date rape drugs, nor any record of inviting men over. I wonder whose phone does have those records. So hard to guess." His eyes widened. He opened his phone and, in disbelief, saw that the messages were indeed sent from his own device. He threw the phone down hard and began hurling every insult he could think of at me. I walked to an inconspicuous spot, picked up the hidden camera, pulled out the memory card, and waved it at him. "You'd better behave. If I find out you've reported me or those other men, I'll send the video from this card to your classmates, your colleagues, and all your relatives. Your chances of successfully prosecuting us are practically zero, but the probability of your complete and utter ruin is 100%. Ignoring how pale his face had turned, I turned and walked away without another word. 12. In the days that followed, he kept a much lower profile and stopped harassing me. I heard about him through mutual acquaintances. He couldn't repay his gambling debts, so the debt collectors called everyone he knew, even his company. He got fired with his source of money gone. He went around begging for loans, but everyone knew about his gambling debts, and no one was willing to lend to a gambler. Cornered and desperate, he came crawling back to me. He knelt before me, Tears and snot streaming down his face as he pleaded, "Darling, if you just pay off my debts, I'll marry into your family, our children can take your surname, I'll settle down and build a good life with you, I'll be a good husband, I promise, please, or they're going to beat me to death." I looked at him and smiled, seeing my smile, his face lit up with hope, thinking he had convinced me, but my next words instantly wiped the expression from his face. "What's in it for me, if I want a child? Why would I choose to have one with trash like you instead of finding a decent, respectable man? Just looking at someone like you makes me feel dirty." After I finished speaking, I shot him a contemptuous glance. He exploded, finally dropping the act. "You bitch, did you come back too? You should be paying off my debts, bearing my sons, and handing over all your family's money to me. How dare a woman be so selfish? My life is ruined because of you, and I won't let you get away with this." He lunged at me with a maniacal look on his face, but I just rolled up the window, drove into the neighborhood, and left him in a cloud of exhaust fumes in the rearview mirror. His face was twisted with pure rage, drawing on memories from my past life. I called his creditors, gave them his address, and told them Lily had the money but simply refused to pay. The next time I heard about him, he had been tricked and taken to Myanmar, harassed by debt collectors with no way out in China. He was given a helpful tip to hide from his debts in Thailand. The moment he tried to leave the country, he was bound and sold off to Myanmar instead. Then, by chance, I ran into Zhao Fen. She must have been kicked out of the nursing home for not being able to pay. Covered in filth, she was kneeling on the ground begging, but not a single passerby was willing to give her any money. I stopped with keen interest. When she saw me, she cried out excitedly, "Good child, I am Lily's mother, your mother-in-law. Hurry up and take me to your home to care for me. I will treat you as my own child." "You old bag, who'd want to take you in? I just came to tell you your son's been tricked into going to Myanmar. You'll be a beggar for the rest of your life." With that, I gave her a smile and left. The end. Story 2. The day I was scolded and ran away from home, Jude Chi humiliated me in front of everyone. Live when, even a dog wouldn't marry her. As he said these words, he was holding my cousin, whom my parents and elder brother treasured like a jewel. Between my cousin Noah Wen and me, Jude Chi chose the gentle and sensible cousin. Obviously, my parents and my own brother were the same. When I finally bought the plane ticket and decided to leave, the last family dinner, my dad sighed, "If only you were half as sensible as Noah." My mom chimed in, "All you do is fool around all day." My brother frowned and said, "Learn more from Noah, Jude Chi." He was gently peeling shrimp for Noah when I quietly finished the meal and disappeared with my suitcase in the early morning. 5 years later, they came looking for me with reddened eyes. I smiled and extended my hand. "Mr. Wen, Mrs. Wen, young Master Wen, young Master Chi, long time no see." My heart felt as if it had been gripped and twisted by an icy hand. The chandelier was dazzling, but what truly pierced my eyes was the bag my brother Wenqing was holding out to Noah Wen, a lake blue crocodile leather, with a delicate and exquisite metal clasp. It was the limited edition I had been obsessing over for 3 whole months, scouring every boutique in the city, and finally securing through an SS waiting list. It was just like that, handed over to Noah Wen by my brother as if presenting a treasure. "Noah, look what I bought for you. Do you like it? It'll go perfectly with your new dress." It had been a long time since I'd heard my brother speak so gently. Noah Wen timidly took it and held it close, her voice as soft as a mosquito's hum. "Thank you, brother. It's too expensive. You shouldn't have spent so much." She spoke, but her eyes quickly darted a glance at me, carrying a hint of hidden triumph. The icy grip twisting my heart suddenly tightened, almost suffocating me. I stared at Wenqing, my voice hoarse. "Bro, that bag." "Oh, Liv." Wenqing seemed to have just noticed my presence beside him. He turned his head, his brows habitually furrowing with a hint of impatience at being interrupted. "You want it too?" The SA said. "There's only one left. Noah is frail, and it's rare for her to take a liking to something, as the older sister can't. You just let your younger sister have it. Don't be so unreasonable. I'll buy you something else later." "Ha, unreasonable." Those 3 words pierced precisely into my already battered and scarred heart. He never used to speak to me like this. No matter how mischievous or unruly I was, he would only gently pat my head and say, "Liv, be good, and I'll buy you a pretty little dress." Okay, but now, these 3 words have become Wenqing's most frequent phrase to me ever since my parents took in my orphaned and frail cousin Noah Wen a few years ago. These 3 words have become my label. "Mom." Noah Wen took my doll again. Noah Wen whimpered timidly, "Auntie, I didn't know sister would get angry just from touching her toy, even though that doll was clearly a limited edition one my uncle specially gave me for my birthday." My mom would immediately put down what she was doing, frown, and pull me aside. "Liv, what's wrong with you? Noah is your younger sister. It's just a doll. Can't you let her Play with it, so unreasonable, uncle, big sister. She pushed me down. Noah Wen fell into the freshly watered muddy garden soil herself, yet she told my dad that I was the one who pushed her, without listening to my explanation. My dad looked at me with disappointment in his eyes. Liv Wen, how many times have I told you to take care of your little sister? You're so irresponsible, every single time, without fail. It's always me who's irresponsible. My room faces the sun, bigger and brighter. When Noah Wen first arrived, she timidly said she was afraid of the cold at night. The next day, my things were packed up by my mom and stuffed into the small guest room on the shady side. Liv, be good. Noah isn't well and needs the sunlight. You're the older sister. Be sensible and let her have it. Sensible, sensible, sensible. Clearly I'm their daughter, yet they always favor an outsider, completely disregarding my feelings. I'm sick of this damned understanding. I don't want anything else. A surge of rage rushed to my head, burning away all my reason. I pointed at the bag in Noah Wen's arms, my voice rising sharply. I want this one. I saw it first. I was the one who cued. Why should she get it? The air in the living room instantly froze. My dad slammed the newspaper onto the coffee table with a loud smack, his face darkening. Liv Wen, how dare you? It's just a bag. What kind of behavior is all this shouting? Noah is your sister. What's wrong with giving it to her? Do you have any sense of family left? Any sense of decency? My mom also set down her coffee cup, looking at me disapprovingly. Liv, when will you ever grow up? Noah is so well behaved. Can't you learn from her? All you care about is fighting over these trivial things. Is that really worth it? Noah Wen seemed startled by my voice, shrinking back as her eyes quickly welled up with tears. Clutching the bag tightly, she began to sob softly. Sister, please don't be angry. I don't want it anymore. You can have it, brother. Don't blame sister. It's my fault. As she spoke, large teardrops rolled down her cheeks one after another, as if she had suffered an unbearable injustice. Wen Qing immediately pulled her into a comforting embrace, his gaze turning completely cold as he looked at me. Liv Wen, have you had enough? It's just a bag. Was it necessary to scare Noah like this? Look at yourself right now. What's the difference between you and a shrew? Can you stop being so unreasonable? A shrew making a scene. Do they really think all I care about is just that one bag? From the part of my heart that was clenched tight, there finally came the clear sound of something shattering. The sharp pain spread instantly, drowning all the anger and resentment. I watched the scene before me, the brother defending Noah Wen, the parents with faces full of disappointment, and that shimmering, painfully dazzling lake blue leather bag in her arms. My throat is so tight I can't make a sound. One more word, and I feel like I'll vomit blood on the spot. I turn away abruptly, refusing to look at any of them or hear another word they say. Overwhelming humiliation and despair surged over me like an icy tide, drowning me in an instant. I stormed out of the house, slamming the heavy carved wooden door shut with all my strength. Bang! The loud crash cut off any possible sound from behind. Perhaps Noah Wen's hypocritical sister, don't go, or my parents' even harsher scolding, or my brother's impatient let her leave. None of it mattered anymore. The moment the door closed, the heavy dusk outside and the artificial warmth of the interior lights were completely severed. The late autumn wind carried a biting chill, slicing across the face like a knife. I ran aimlessly, my lungs burning fiercely, yet I felt no warmth at all. The labels of shrew and unreasonable troublemaker seared into my soul like a branding iron. Where to? Where else? In my chaotic mind, only one name remains: Jude Chi. That boy who used to follow me around since childhood, always slipping the sweetest candies into my palm. The boy who would skip class with me by climbing over the wall, then take all the blame upon himself. Jude Chi, who gifted me a high-end limited edition gown for my 18th birthday, whispering in my ear with conviction, Liv, you look as beautiful as a bride today. Promise me you'll marry me someday. He always said I was like a little sun, brightening his world. Now, all I want is to hold on to this last faint glimmer of light. Perhaps he would understand me. I hailed a taxi and gave the name of the private club Jude Chi frequented. The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror, likely startled by my reddened eyes and disheveled appearance, and drove swiftly in silence the whole way. The lights at the club entrance were hazy and alluring. I took a deep breath, trying to wipe the tear stains from my face and suppress the grievances in my heart, pushing open the heavy soundproof door. The deafening music and clamorous voices hit me like a wave. Amid the swirling smoke, I spotted Jude Chi at a glance. He sat in the central booth, his posture relaxed and at ease. The dim lighting cast an ambiguous glow on his sharply defined profile, and right beside him, sitting closely, was actually Noah Wen. She was wearing a simple white dress, standing out starkly amidst the surrounding extravagance. Like a timid little white flower, Jude Chi tilted his head slightly, smiling as he said something to her. Noah Wen kept her head down, her cheeks flushed, nervously twisting the hem of her dress with her fingers, occasionally glancing up at him with eyes full of admiration and dependence. This scene, more than the farce about the bag at home, was like an ice-cold dagger thrust straight into my heart, cruelly twisted for good measure. Juchi could be with anyone, so why did it have to be her? Noah. When I froze in place, my blood seemingly turning to ice. The other wealthy kids who often hung out in the booth noticed me. One of them, with bleached blonde hair and probably a bit drunk, started teasing Juchi with a cheeky grin. Well, if it isn't young Master Chi, speak of the devil, and isn't that your little sunshine, Miss Wen? What's the matter? Changed your approach recently, not chasing after your young Master Chi anymore, now inseparable from the second Miss Wen. Instead, he deliberately drew out his words, laced with teasing intent. Didn't you promise to marry the eldest Miss Wen someday, young Master Chi? You're changing directions a bit too quickly, aren't you? A round of knowing. Laughter rippled through the crowd. The smile on Juchi's face faded. He turned his head, his gaze landing on me. That look was unfamiliar, tinged with displeasure at being disturbed, and a hint of, barely perceptible disdain. His thin lips parted slightly, his voice not loud, yet it stabbed sharply into my eardrums. Marry her, he scoffed, with undisguised annoyance and mockery. Liv Wen's temper is like a firecracker. It goes off at the slightest touch. Even a dog wouldn't marry her. He paused, his gaze sweeping over Noah Wen, who was trembling slightly from nervousness and shyness, and his tone unexpectedly softened. If I were to marry, it would be someone as gentle and sensible as Noah. Not even a dog would marry her. Gentle and sensible. The world seemed to have been muted. All the noise, music, and laughter instantly faded away from me. Only Juchi's icy words remained, echoing madly in my hollow mind. Noah Wen seemed stunned by this sudden confession, jerking her head up with a look of incredulous joy and shyness in her eyes as she stared at Juchi. She instinctively shrank closer to Juchi, like a fledgling seeking shelter. Juchi didn't look at me again, as if I were just an insignificant passerby who had ruined his mood. The excruciating pain in my chest surged once more, fiercer than ever before. It wasn't just a tight grip, it felt like being torn apart alive. Turns out, when a heart shatters, it truly makes a sound. I clenched my teeth on my lower lip, tasting the heavy metallic tang of blood. My nails dug deep into my palms, trying to use this insignificant pain to suppress the overwhelming despair. I didn't cry. Tears seemed too cheap, too laughable in the face of such extreme humiliation and coldness. I took one last glance at the perfect couple in the booth. Juchi was whispering something to Noah Wen, his profile impossibly tender, and Noah Wen, nestled beside him, wore undisguised happiness and contentment on her face. Turning around, I straightened my back and walked away, step by step, from this place that had utterly broken my heart. Behind me, the door that separated the clamor from the cold reality slowly closed. Darkness completely swallowed me. This time, there wasn't a single glimmer of light left. I thought I had completely given up on them, but when Wenqing's message coldly came through, I still replied with a faint hope. Okay, Wenqing, Noah suggested organizing a family camping trip this weekend. Up to you whether you want to go. Me, okay. Send me the address. But this family camping trip felt like a massive, inescapable nightmare. My parents were in high spirits, with Wenqing fussing over Noah Wen at every turn, terrified she might catch the slightest chill. Juchi had also come along, his high-end cooler packed with all of Noah Wen's favorite snacks and fruits. They had all forgotten that I used to be the child they doted on during outings. I felt like an unnecessary outsider, trailing silently at the back of the group. The wind in the woods carried the damp, cold scent of soil, chilling to the bone. As it brushed against the skin that night, Juchi's words, "Not even a dog would marry you," kept replaying in my mind, each repetition bringing a sharp sting. I must be pathetic to still cling to even a shred of emotional longing for them. Noah, are you cold? Here, wrap yourself in this blanket. Wenqing draped his woolen blanket over Noah Wen. Thank you, brother, I'm not cold, Noah Wen whispered in refusal, her cheeks flushing red. Be good, you're delicate. My mother smiled beside them. Qing is so thoughtful. My father also nodded. Noah should take more care. Juchi handed over a thermos, warm ginger tea to ward off the cold. Noah Wen took it, cradling it in her hands, sipping slowly, her long lashes lowered like a fragile porcelain doll. Her gaze occasionally swept over me, lagging behind, carrying a hint of pity and the superiority of a victor, as if declaring to me, look, the people who once treated you the best are now all fawning over me, and you, Liv Wen, were heartlessly abandoned by them like a dog. At dusk, we found a flat grassy area in the valley to set up camp. There was a row of abandoned ranger cabins nearby, standing dark and silent in the distance. Liv, those little cabins over there look so mysterious. Noah Wen's friend Lily pointed at the cabins dramatically and said, want to go explore together, maybe take some photos? Yeah, they look so atmospheric. Another girl chimed in. Noah Wen seemed a bit scared and moved closer to Jude, whispering. Could there be snakes inside? It's so dark, kinda creepy. Jude immediately patted her shoulder reassuringly. Don't be afraid, I'm here. What's there to be scared of? Noah, it's broad daylight. Lily, being quite bold, grabbed Noah Wen's hand and pulled her forward. Come on, let's go. Liv, you come too. More people means more courage. She reached out with her other hand to pull me, and I instinctively wanted to resist. I have a deep-rooted fear of darkness, stemming from a childhood accident. This is something Jude, my parents, and my older brother all know, but seeing their excitement, especially the way Noah Wen relied on Jude, a sudden, inexplicable impulse surged within me, one tinged with self-destructive tendencies. I nodded silently. Perhaps going to a dark place and letting fear overwhelm me could temporarily numb the pain in my heart. The wooden cabin was old, with light struggling to seep through the broken windows and door cracks, barely illuminating the swirling dust. Inside was empty, save for some rotten wood and scattered debris. Wow, look at this broken cabinet. It'll definitely have that post-apocalyptic vibe in photos. Lily excitedly pulled Noah Wen inside. Jude stayed by Noah Wen's side, turning on his phone's flashlight to illuminate the path for her. I lagged behind, standing near the entrance, watching Jude tightly holding Noah Wen's hand ahead. My heart ached once more. Jude knows I'm afraid of the dark. In the past, even when walking home from school on a well-lit main road, he would hold my hand in front, saying awkward things. Hold on tight. If the streetlight goes out later, don't you dare start crying. A bitter smile forced its way into my heart. Liv Wen, oh Liv Wen, it's all in the past now. The door was an old-fashioned, heavy wooden one, with rusted latches hanging on it. The light inside the room grew dimmer, with only the faint glow from Jude's phone flickering. The darkness, like thick, viscous tidewater, silently closed in from all sides, gradually pressing against my nerves. Fragments of childhood memories, being locked in that dark little room, surged uncontrollably to the surface, bringing with them a chilling sense of suffocation. Instinctively, I took a step back, my heel bumping against the threshold. Just then, a gust of wind rushed violently through the hallway. Bang, click, a dull, heavy thud. The massive wooden door was slammed shut by a sudden gust of wind. The old-fashioned latch on the door, under the force of the impact, actually clicked shut with a snap, sealing it tightly. The sudden loud noise and complete darkness sent all the blood in my body rushing to my head in an instant, only to freeze into ice the next second. Ah, Lily and the other girl screamed in terror. What's going on? Jude's voice was filled with shock and anger as the beam from his phone immediately swept toward the door. The door closed. Lily cried out, her voice trembling. Brother Jude, I'm scared. Noah Wen's trembling voice echoed in the darkness. Don't be afraid, Noah. I'm here. Jude comforted her, the beam from his phone flashlight swaying on the door as he pushed and pulled at the latch with all his might. Damn it, it's rusted shut, won't budge. What do we do? Are we going to be trapped here forever? Another girl burst into tears. Phone, quick, call for help. Lily remained relatively calm. I leaned against the icy wooden door, my body trembling uncontrollably. The absolute darkness devoured everything, more terrifyingly real than any nightmare. My heart pounded wildly in my chest, each beat bringing a suffocating sense of impending death. Memories of childhood forgotten in the dark basement surfaced like ghosts, vivid and haunting. Cold, despair, and boundless terror gripped my throat, leaving me unable to utter a sound. Cold sweat instantly soaked through the clothes on my back, sticky and icy. Hello, Wenching, it's me. We're at that little cabin. The door got shut by the wind. It won't open. Hurry and bring help. Lily's voice trembled with tears. Yes, that row of abandoned houses in the valley. Noah's here too. She's terrified. Chi Xiao is also inside. Okay, hurry. Another girl added urgently. Noah, how are you? Don't be afraid. Your brother and the others will be here soon. Lily turned toward Noah Wen's direction again. The beam from the phone flickered in the cramped space, occasionally sweeping over Noah Wen's pale, terrified face, over Jude's furrowed brow and his relentless attempts to break down the door. Not a single ray of that faint light fell upon me. Like an invisible ghost, I was utterly forgotten in the corner by the door, swallowed by boundless darkness and fear. Time became viscous and interminable under the weight of extreme fear, each minute and second an excruciating torment for me. Finally, the clamor of hurried footsteps and shouts reached the door. Noah, are you in there? Don't be afraid, I'm coming. It was Wenching's voice. Jude, what's the situation inside? My father had arrived too, Uncle. We're in here. The door is locked, Jude shouted in response. Noah, my Noah, are you okay? If anything happens to you, how will I explain it to your deceased parents? My mother's voice, choked with sobs, was particularly piercing. Outside, the harsh sounds of tools prying and banging on the door echoed. Each heavy blow felt like it was striking my already taut nerves. Bang, crash, a loud noise erupted. Accompanied by flying wood splinters, the door was finally forced open with brute strength. Blinding flashlight beams suddenly poured in. Instinctively, I raised my hand to shield my eyes as the intense light triggered a flood of involuntary tears. Noah, Noah. Several figures rushed in almost simultaneously, making a beeline for Noah Wen, who was being shielded in Jude Chi's arms. Noah, are you okay? Are you hurt? You must be terrified. My mother pulled Noah Wen from Jude Chi's embrace, hugging her tightly with a choked voice while carefully examining her from head to toe. Wenqing also pushed to the front, his face ashen. What happened? How could she be locked inside for no reason? Jude Chi, what were you doing? You were supposed to keep an eye on Noah. Though my father remained silent, his clenched jaw and furrowed brow were filled with concern for Noah Wen and fury over the accident. Jude Chi wore a trace of guilt on his face and said solemnly. A gust of wind blew the door shut, and the latch was rusted. It wouldn't open. Noah was badly frightened, his gaze swept over Noah Wen's pale little face, his heart aching with distress. Noah Wen nestled in her mother's arms, her body still trembling slightly as she sobbed quietly. Auntie, it's so dark, I'm so scared. Cough cough. Suddenly, she began coughing violently, her little face turning red from the strain. Oh no, she's caught a chill. She must have gotten frightened and then exposed to the wind. My mother grew even more distressed and hurriedly took off her own coat to wrap around Noah. Quick, let's get back to the campsite. Cheng, bring the car over. We need to get Noah something warm right away. Great. Wenqing immediately turned and ran outside. Uncle, Aunt, please take Noah back first. It's windy here. Jude Chi also said promptly. A group of people crowded around Noah Wen, treating her like a fragile treasure, and hurriedly surged toward the door. The beams of flashlights swayed with their movement, sweeping over the wood chips scattered on the ground and over the still shaken faces of Lily and the others. No one turned back. No one asked, what about Liv Wen? How is she? I stood in the shadows by the door, less than a step away from where it had been broken open. The violent coughing fit just now had churned my stomach, leaving a coppery, sweet taste stuck in my throat. Cold sweat soaked through the clothes, clinging tightly to the icy skin, sending waves of shivers. The lingering terror still coursed through every limb. Lily and another girl supported each other, following the crowd in a daze, and walked out as well. From beginning to end, no one spared me a glance. The last beam of flashlight light disappeared beyond the door. A soft bang sounded as the camp vehicle drove away. The world fell completely silent. Dead silence. Only the howling wind in the valley, passing through the dilapidated wooden cabin, emitted hollow whimpers. Darkness closed in again, embracing me with both tenderness and cruelty. I leaned against the cold, rough wooden door, my body sliding down bit by bit, until I finally collapsed onto the icy, damp, and dust-covered floor. No light, no human voices. The tears finally came surging forth belatedly, scalding as they slid down icy cheeks before crashing to the ground. Not because of the fear of darkness, but because of the ultimate realization that in this world, there truly would no longer be anyone to light a lamp for me in the dark, or to open a door for me. Live Wen. What exactly were you expecting? The death of the heart. This is what it feels like. Not an acute pain, but an endless expanse of cold and emptiness. I curled up in the icy darkness, unaware of how much time had passed, until my body grew numb from the cold and my tears ran dry, leaving behind only a near-nothingness of calm. As dawn approached, I dragged my stiff, frozen body back to camp. Step by step, the camp was quiet. Low voices came from my parents' tent, as if they were discussing going back early to take Noah Wen to see a doctor. Wenqing's tent was silent, and Jude Chi's eye catching off-road vehicle was already gone. No one noticed my absence all night, or perhaps, no one remembered that someone like me still existed in the camp. I quietly packed my simple belongings without disturbing anyone and boarded the earliest scenic bus leaving the camp. Outside the window, the mountains and forests gradually became clear in the dawn light, tinged with fresh greenery. Yet in my heart, only desolate ashes remained. The phone screen lit up, displaying a new deposit notification from the bank app. It was the final payment for last month's job, helping a nouveau riche boss fix the feng shui of his new villa. The amount wasn't staggering, but it was enough for a one-way ticket to the other side of the globe and to sustain me in a foreign land until I found my first job. My fingers slid across the cold screen, finally pausing on the airline app icon. Click, search, choose a destination. A Nordic city renowned for its freedom and inclusivity, distant enough to leave all the past behind. Pay, confirm. The notification sound of the e-ticket being generated was faint, yet like a key, it clicked open a heavy shackle. Looking at the words "payment successful" on the screen, a faint glimmer of light finally pierced through the barren ashes in my heart. Not joy, but a near exhaustion, a dust-settled calm. I turned off my phone and walked to the window. Outside was the meticulously manicured lawn and rare flora of the Wen family garden, bathed in the artificial, climate-controlled happiness. All of this felt so familiar to me, yet so suffocating. Before Noah Wen arrived, I often played in the garden, with my parents running around me and my elder brother lifting me onto his shoulders. Now, the protagonist of the story is no longer me. I think it's time to end it. The last bit of ridiculous reluctance is about that illusion called home. Perhaps, a final farewell is still needed to sever the last thread of self-deception, even if it's just to draw a clear and decisive end to the absurdity of these past 20+ years. I picked up my phone and opened the nearly silent family group chat. My fingers hovered over the screen for a few seconds before finally typing out a line. Tomorrow at 7 p.m., Golden Summit Pavilion, private room 888, my treat, something to discuss. At everyone, the message was sent, and it took a full 10 minutes before the phone vibrated. It was Mom. Got it, don't be late again, followed by Wenching. Sure. Noah happens to be craving their crab meat lion's head meatballs. Dad didn't reply. Jude Chi. I sent him a message too, but he didn't reply, probably busy, or with someone. Expected. I tugged at the corner of my mouth. That faint glimmer of light seemed to brighten just a little. Great, that saves me the last bit of hesitation. The next evening, Jindingshuan was brilliantly lit. Private room 888 was luxuriously spacious, with a massive crystal chandelier refracting dazzling light. I arrived 15 minutes early. The large round table stood empty, with waiters quietly setting the tableware. Time ticked by, and at exactly 7:00, the door to the private room was pushed open. My parents walked in. My father's brows were slightly furrowed as usual, while my mother's face carried a trace of weariness. Next came Wenching, carefully shielding Noah Wen. She wore a soft apricot-colored dress today, her face pale with a hint of illness, making her appear even more delicate and pitiable. Dad, Mom, brother, Noah. I stood up, my voice calm and steady. My father responded, taking his seat at the head of the table. My mother glanced at me, her gaze lingering on me for less than a second before turning to Noah Wen. Noah, sit down quickly, don't tire yourself. How are you feeling today? Still coughing. Much better, Auntie. Noah Wen smiled softly, sitting down on the chair Wenching had pulled out for her. Wenching sat down beside her and casually asked me, where's Jude Chi? Didn't he come with you? His tone carried a natural curiosity. He's busy, I replied tersely with just 2 words before taking my seat. As soon as the words left my mouth, the private room door swung open again. Jude Chi walked in, dressed in a well-tailored dark suit that accentuated his tall and upright figure. His gaze swept across the table and landed directly on the empty seat next to Noah Wen. He walked over naturally, pulled out the chair, and sat down. Brother Jude. Noah Wen looked up, flashing a sweet smile. Jude Chi nodded at her, the corner of his lips curling slightly in acknowledgement. Only then did he seem to notice me, his gaze casually flickering over before giving a slight nod. Liv Wen. His tone was as flat as if he were addressing a barely familiar colleague. Everyone is here. The waiter began serving the dishes quietly, and the exquisite dishes filled the large rotating tray. No one picked up their chopsticks, and the atmosphere was somewhat tense. Father took a sip of tea, breaking the silence. He looked at me with a familiar scrutinizing gaze. Go ahead, what's the matter this time? He set down his teacup, his voice not loud but filled with reproach. Always rushing around, never steady. If you were even half as sensible as Noah, understanding how to consider the family, your mother and I wouldn't have to worry so much about you. My mother immediately chimed in. Exactly, Noah is so worry-free, gentle and considerate, and you, all you do is play outside, hanging around with all sorts of questionable people, coming home in the dead of night. What kind of behavior is that? As she spoke, her gaze swept over my simple black shirt and trousers, her frown deepening as if my outfit were some kind of disgrace. Wenching scoffed, picking up his chopsticks to place a glistening shrimp dumpling onto Noah Wen's plate without even looking up. Dad's right, Liv Wen, it's time you settled down. Stop fooling around all day, causing trouble. Learn from Noah, see how it's done. The lazy Susan rotated silently. The exquisitely plated steamed red grouper that Jude Chi had noticed when it was first served had now come to rest precisely before Noah Wen. Noah, try this fish, it's very tender. Picking up the serving chopsticks, he effortlessly and meticulously separated a succulent, boneless piece from the belly, the choicest cut, and placed it steadily into Noah Wen's dish. Noah Wen's cheeks flushed slightly as she whispered, thank you, Brother Jude. Jude Chi didn't respond, simply picking up another braised prawn. His slender fingers deftly peeled away the glossy red shell, revealing the tender white meat inside, which he then placed into Noah Wen's plate once more. Throughout, He remained focused on his task, his gentle gaze fixed on the gradually growing pile of food in Noah Wen's plate. He didn't look at me again. I watched the scene before me quietly. He probably forgot. It used to be him peeling for me. And everything he put in Noah Wen's bowl was what I loved to eat. My father's disappointment, my mother's reproach, my brother's undisguised comparisons and belittling, and Jude's oblivious, meticulous care for Noah Wen. They gathered around the round table, a symbol of reunion and family bonds, completely excluding me. I felt no anger, no grievance, not even sorrow, only absurdity. The barren ashes in the depths of my heart were doused of their last remaining warmth by this final scene before me. So this is what it means for the heart to die to the extreme, when even pain can no longer be felt. I picked up my chopsticks and took a piece of the jellyfish salad closest to me. I ate quietly, chewing slowly and deliberately, listening to their warm inquiries about Noah Wen, listening to their judgment of me as immature and fooling around, watching Jude serve Noah Wen another small bowl of warm matsutake chicken soup. The meal was unusually quiet as a mime show with a foregone conclusion. The dishes on the plate gradually disappeared. The waiter silently cleared the empty plates and brought a delicate fruit platter and hot towels. I set down my chopsticks, picked up the warm towel, and carefully wiped my hands and the corners of my mouth. Then, I lifted my head and calmly swept my gaze over each person at the table. Their eyes, some bright, some shadowed, some still carrying traces of reproach, others indifferent as if it had nothing to do with them, finally focused briefly on me. I slightly twitched the corner of my mouth, forming a faint, almost imperceptible smile that was utterly distant. The voice wasn't loud, yet it rang clearly in the suddenly silent, luxurious private room. I'm done eating. Take your time, no explanation, no farewell. With that, I picked up the thin coat draped over the back of the chair and stood up under the stunned, frowning, utterly bewildered gazes of everyone. I turned around and walked out of this gilded cage, step by step, steadily and resolutely. The door closed softly behind me. It shut out all sounds, completely severing me from that world called the past. 3 o'clock in the morning. The Wen family villa was engulfed in silent darkness. I dragged my small suitcase, just big enough for the bare essentials, across the carpet, its wheels rolling without making a sound. I stopped at the entrance and took one last look at the place where I had lived for 20 years. The enormous crystal chandelier, the expensive Persian rug, the priceless oil paintings on the walls. It was long overdue for me to leave without any lingering attachment. I took out my phone, swiped my finger, and opened the contacts list. Those once intimately familiar names, Dad, Mom, Brother, Jude, stood like a row of cold tombstones. Delete, confirm. The action was swift and decisive, without the slightest hesitation. Next is WeChat, where the family group still holds my last message about organizing a gathering. Open, exit. Then, the list of names connected one by one. Delete, confirmed. The screen's light went out, and the world fell completely silent. I fished out a small plastic card holder from my pocket, inside which was a brand new SIM card. Prying open the card slot, I removed the old SIM card that had accompanied me for years, carrying all my past connections. Without a moment's hesitation, her fingers loosened their grip. Click. That small card, like a withered leaf, drifted lightly downward, falling into the gaps between the white pebbles and the decorative vase by the entrance. In an instant, it was swallowed up, vanishing without a trace. Then, I slid that brand new SIM card into the slot. Click. A soft sound, like a lock turning, sealing the world behind me completely. After finishing all this, I pulled up the collar of my coat to cover my jaw. Gripping the cold handle of the suitcase, I pushed open the heavy villa door. The wind in the early hours of late autumn, carrying a biting chill, rushed in instantly, dispelling the last trace of stifling air in the room. The air was cold and fresh, carrying the scent of freedom. I took a deep breath, the icy air flooding my lungs, bringing a sharp sting, yet strangely refreshing. No looking back, I dragged my small suitcase and stepped into the boundless night. Outside the door at the street corner, a pre-booked taxi waited quietly, its vacant light glowing red. I pulled open the car door, got in, and calmly said, "The airport." The engine started, and the car smoothly glided into the empty streets of the early morning. The scenery outside the window rapidly receded into the darkness, the familiar streets gradually left behind, blurred, and finally vanished in the rearview mirror. I leaned against the cold car window, watching the swiftly flowing darkness outside. Above the barren ashes in my heart, something was quietly sprouting. Not joy, not anticipation, but something long lost, heavy, yet undeniably real. Relaxed. 5 years is enough time for a city to undergo earth-shaking changes, and for a person to be completely transformed. In H City, located in northern Europe, the late autumn sunlight poured generously through the massive floor-to-ceiling glass walls, flooding the thoroughly modern press conference venue. The air was filled with the crisp scent of pine and the rich aroma of freshly ground coffee. The audience seats were fully occupied, with an array of cameras and lenses focused intently on the stage. I stood on the podium, dressed in a sharply tailored pearl-white suit dress that accentuated a professional silhouette. Therefore, based on in-depth user behavior analysis and cross-cultural aesthetic models, the design philosophy of our Novalink series not only aims to bridge physical distances but also strives to construct a borderless bridge of emotional resonance. My voice, amplified by the microphone, resonated clearly throughout the venue, steady, confident, and carrying a composure honed through countless rehearsals. 5 years from being a penniless stranger in a foreign land who couldn't speak the language, to standing here today as the co-founder and chief product experience officer of the red-hot smart home brand Novalink, only the endless winter darkness of City H and that simple camp bed beneath my office desk know the blood, sweat, tears, struggles, and countless sleepless nights in between. The applause came at just the right moment, polite yet enthusiastic. The flashes of cameras formed a silvery sea. I gave a slight nod, my gaze calmly sweeping across the audience below. Just as my eyes passed over the side entrance at the back of the venue, several figures abruptly caught my attention. They stood there, starkly out of place among the surrounding business professionals and media reporters. My father, Wen Jinghong. After 5 years apart, he seemed to have aged considerably. His once straight back was slightly hunched, and his temples were streaked with striking patches of frost white. He wore a thick woolen coat that appeared somewhat out of place, his face bearing the exhaustion of a long flight and an almost fearful urgency. His eyes were fixed intently on me on the stage, swirling with shock, unfamiliarity, and a trace of indescribable regret and pain. My mother, Lin Wanrong, her usually well-maintained face had lost its usual composure and elegance. With swollen red eyes and her carefully styled bun slightly disheveled, she clutched the arm of the person beside her tightly, her knuckles turning white from the force, her lips trembling slightly as if she were about to lose control and scream at any moment. The one whose arm she was clutching was Wenqing, my brother. He seemed to have changed the most. The once confident and dashing young man was nowhere to be seen. His face had an unhealthy pallor, and his figure had grown noticeably thinner, swallowed up by a dark overcoat that hung loosely on him. His lips were tightly pressed together, his brows deeply furrowed. In his eyes, there was an expression of incredulous shock, profound guilt, and a dazed pain as if reality had just dealt him a harsh slap. Standing on the other side of Wenqing was Jude Qi. Time seemed to have been particularly kind to him, still handsome and upright, his expensive tailored suit accentuating his broad shoulders and narrow waist. Yet that once effortless air of noble composure was now replaced by a heavy gloom and exhaustion. His jawline was tightly clenched, his thin lips pressed into a cold, rigid line. Those once deep eyes, which had been filled with starlight, now lay dark and lifeless, reflecting only the radiant yet utterly unfamiliar figure on the stage. His gaze bore down on me with an intensity that carried overwhelming shock, anguish, and regret, and a trace of something I had never seen in his eyes before, a near pleading, almost humble desperation amidst the clamorous applause and blinding camera flashes. Across 5 long years and 10,000 kilometers of physical distance, their gazes were like barbed ropes, fiercely coiling around me. It felt as though the combined force of those gazes had struck my heart, not too lightly, yet not too heavily either. My assistant once told me, "Mr. Wen, it seems your family back home has been searching for you all this time, and that person named Jude Qi, they'd even posted a high reward bounty worldwide to find you." "Oh, really?" I replied indifferently, without a moment's hesitation, before diving back into my busy work. Now that I've actually seen them at the press conference, my heart didn't ache as intensely as I had anticipated, only a faint, almost imperceptible sensation. It was fleeting. My gaze didn't linger on them for more than a second. The smile on my face remained unchanged as I smoothly concluded my speech, gracefully nodding to the audience. "Once more, thank you, everyone." The applause thundered once more. I turned and, surrounded by assistants and security personnel, walked with composed and steady steps toward the backstage passage. "President Wen, please wait." "Ms. Wen, one more question, please." Urgent shouts in both Chinese and English came from behind, some from the media, and perhaps, mixed with a familiar, trembling voice. I didn't turn around. The door of the passage silently closed behind me, cutting off all the noise and gazes. In the backstage lounge, my assistant quickly caught up and handed me a cup of warm water, her tone carrying a barely noticeable tension. "When, those people outside, seem to be here for you. Should we notify security?" I took the water glass, took a small sip, and looked up. "No need." My voice was calm and steady, devoid of any emotion. "An irrelevant person. Are the media interviews after the press conference arranged?" "All arranged, in the small meeting room in 10 minutes." I nodded. walked to the dressing mirror, and slightly adjusted the perfectly neat hair at my temples. The woman in the mirror had a calm yet sharp gaze, with no trace left of the once meek and long-suffering Liv. When 10 minutes later, I arrived punctually at the small conference room, reporters from several major media outlets were already waiting inside. The interview proceeded smoothly, with questions focused on the product, market, and future strategies, professional and efficient. After the hour-long interview concluded, the reporters gradually left. The last blonde reporter packed up her voice recorder, stood up, and smiled, saying, "Ms. Wen, thank you so much for your time. Your brand story is truly inspiring, especially the hardships you mentioned when you first arrived in H City. It left a deep impression. Finally, could you share what has been your greatest motivation throughout this journey? Is it your family?" Family, this familiar yet distant word, like a tiny pebble dropped into a calm lake, sent a barely perceptible ripple through my heart before vanishing without a trace. I smiled slightly, a standard and detached smile, carrying just the right touch of professionalism. What has kept me going is my belief in creating value, the countless partners who have fought alongside me, and, I paused, my gaze drifting to the clear, vast sky outside the city of H, the self that never bows to the past. The reporter showed a knowing and admiring smile, thanked me once more, and left. The meeting room fell silent. I picked up the folder on the table and was about to leave. Click. The wooden door of the meeting room was gently pushed open from the outside. Those figures finally appeared at the doorway. They stood there, blocking the only exit. 5 years of time and 10,000 kilometers of distance seemed compressed and distorted in this moment, leaving only the heavy standoff between inside and outside the door. Mere inches apart, the air in the lounge seemed to freeze. Instantly, my father stood at the forefront, his eyes fixed on me, his lips trembling as he forced out a few broken syllables from the depths of his throat. "Liv, is it really you?" The voice was hoarse, carrying a trembling, near-death disbelief. My mother was already in tears. She broke free from Wenching's supporting hand, staggered forward a step, her voice sharp and broken, heavy with sobs. "Liv, my daughter, Mom is sorry. Mom was wrong. Mom was truly wrong. We've searched for you for 5 years. And today we've finally found you. Your room, Noah Wen has cleared it out for you, and I bought many beautiful dresses for you. Noah Wen has also been sent away. She will never appear before you again. Liv, won't you come home with Mom? Come home." She reached out as if to lunge and grab me but was firmly held back by Wenching. Wenching's face was even more ashen than it had been at the venue. He tightly gripped our emotionally distraught mother, yet his gaze was like a nail fixed on my face. His eyes were filled with regret, pain, self-blame, and a despondency utterly crushed by 5 long years. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but in the end, only closed his eyes in anguish, letting out a stifled sob. As for Jude Chi, he stood at the back, leaning against the doorframe. His tall figure now seemed somewhat hunched, his handsome face devoid of any expression, only a deathly pallor of silence. Only those unfathomable eyes remained unblinking, fixed on me with an unyielding intensity. Within that gaze surged waves of anguish and remorse, along with a hint of madness-tinged obsession. Calmly, I averted my gaze, picked up the folder and phone from the table, stood up, and walked toward the door without the slightest hesitation. As I approached, the human wall at the doorway seemed to grow even more rigid and tense. My mother's sobs turned into stifled whimpers, my father's body swayed slightly, and the last glimmer of hope in his eyes was completely extinguished, leaving only despair as lifeless as ashes. Wenching clenched his lower lip so tightly that the veins on the back of his hand, gripping his mother's, bulged, and Jude Chi, just as I was about to pass him by, suddenly tensed up. Instinctively, he reached out, that hand with distinct knuckles, the same hand that had gently stroked Noah Wen's hair countless times, and abruptly seized my wrist. Cold fingers, with a desperate strength, tightly gripped my wrist. "Liv," he finally spoke, his voice hoarse and pleading. "Don't go." I stopped in my tracks, not because of his touch, nor because of that broken call, simply because my path was blocked. I lowered my lashes, my gaze falling on my wrist where he had grabbed me. The hand that once made my heart race and filled me with affection now brings only a chill and an indescribable unfamiliarity. Then, I raised my head. My gaze calmly swept past his bloodshot eyes, filled with pain and humble pleading, past the faces behind him that were equally etched with remorse and despair. No anger, no resentment, not even the slightest ripple of emotion. I raised a distant curve of my lips at them. "Excuse me, please let me pass." With a slight twist of my wrist, a small movement, I easily broke free from that desperate grasp. Jude Chi's hand froze mid-air, his fingers curling futilely before finally dropping powerlessly. The color drained from his face in an instant, and the last faint glimmer of light in his bottomless eyes was completely extinguished. I didn't look at him again, nor did I glance at the 3 family members behind me who seemed to have all their vitality drained in an instant. My gaze remained fixed straight ahead. As if they were nothing but air, I took a step forward, my high heels clicking clearly on the polished floor. Tap, tap. Without hesitation, I walked right past them, heading toward the sunlit corridor outside, toward that vast and free future that had long ceased to have anything to do with them. The bright sunlight outside the door instantly poured in, outlining my straight and resolute back. Behind me, the deathly silence was shattered by a sudden outburst of heart-wrenching sobs, suppressed to the extreme. Liv, my daughter. There was also a dull thud, as if someone had thrown their entire body weight against the doorframe, accompanied by Wenqing's hoarse cry, Jude Chi. I didn't look back, not even a single step did I pause. To be continued. The morning after Liv Wen's disappearance. The Wen family villa was enveloped in an eerie calm. Lin Wanrong rubbed her temples as she came downstairs, frowning at the empty living room. Li didn't come home again last night. That child is becoming more and more outrageous. Her tone carried the usual reproach as she turned to the kitchen to prepare Noah Wen's stomach-nourishing breakfast. When Jinghong sat at the dining table reading the newspaper and merely snorted at the remark without looking up. Let her be. She's well into her 20s and still doesn't know any manners. Where's Noah? Let her sleep in. She was frightened during the camping trip the other day. Wenqing appeared yawning and casually replied, who cares about her? She'll come back when she's had enough fun. Did Noah sleep well last night? Mom, make her some bird's nest soup to calm her nerves. His attention was entirely on his phone, busy sending messages to Jude Chi to arrange taking Noah Wen to see the newly released movie in the evening. For 3 consecutive days, Liv Wen's room remained empty. That habitual certainty of she's out fooling around again began to be replaced by a barely noticeable unease. The dining table felt unusually empty without the presence of that figure who could sometimes be boisterous and other times so silent it was unsettling. Give her a call. When Jinghong set down his chopsticks, his tone carrying a note of command, ask her how long she plans to keep this up. Lin Wanrong picked up the phone and dialed, but all she heard was the cold, mechanical voice. The number you have dialed is not in service. Empty number. The restaurant fell silent instantly. Wenqing and Wen Changhong looked up simultaneously, while Noah Wen paused her delicate sips of soup, her eyes flickering momentarily. Empty number. How is that possible? Lin Wanrong didn't believe it and dialed again, but the result remained the same. Wenqing immediately took out his own phone and dialed Liv Wen's number, only to hear the same emotionless prompt tone from the receiver. The ease on his face vanished, replaced by a hint of panic. Dad, Mom, Liv's number. It really has become a dead number. A chill silently crept up the spines of the 3 Wen family members. No matter how angry Liv Wen used to be, her phone was always reachable, even if she didn't answer. A disconnected number signifies a complete, resolute severance. Go find Jude Chi. When Jinghong suddenly stood up, he must know. Wenqing practically stormed out of the house. When he arrived at the CEO's office on the top floor of the Chi Group, Jude Chi had just finished a meeting. His usual air of aristocratic elegance tinged with a hint of irritation. Wenqing blurted out without preamble, Jude, has Liv contacted you? Her phone number is out of service. She's gone missing. Jude Chi frowned. Liv Wen, didn't she? He instinctively wanted to say, isn't she just throwing a tantrum with you guys? But the words caught in his throat as a strong sense of dissonance struck him. How long had it been since he properly spoke to Liv Wen? When did it all start? Fragments of memories uncontrollably flood my mind. Was it 6 months ago, when he stood up Liv Wen for their planned art exhibition date because Noah Wen suddenly felt unwell and was scared being home alone? He drove to spend the afternoon with her instead, leaving Liv Wen waiting outside the museum for 3 hours, only to receive a cold "got it" in response. Or that heavy rainstorm when he got a tearful call from Noah Wen saying she was lost and scared in an underground parking lot. He immediately turned the car around, abandoning Liv Wen, who had just stepped out after a minor argument, alone on the roadside in the pouring rain. Or last month, when Liv Wen accidentally knocked Noah Wen's new phone to the ground, cracking the screen. What exactly had he said then? Liv Wen, can't you be more careful? Noah's things can't handle your rough handling. He remembered the look in Liv Wen's eyes at that moment, piercingly cold. Without a word, she turned and walked away. All those details he had overlooked. Liv Wen's increasingly rare contact, her growing silence, now pierced his heart like countless needles. The suffocating sense of loss, sudden and overwhelming, gripped him without warning. She didn't look for me. Jude Chi's voice was hoarse as he immediately picked up his phone to dial Liv Wen's number. When the number not in service prompt came through the receiver, his heart suddenly stopped, and his face paled noticeably. How could this be? How could she possibly have changed her phone number? What on earth is Liv Wen doing? Find her now. Jude Chi growled at his assistant, his voice devoid of its usual composure. Check all her bank card transactions, contact every friend she might know, airports, train stations, find her. In the following days, the Wen family and Jude Chi used every connection they could, searching for Liv Wen like mad. There were no unusual transactions on her bank card. As if she had vanished into thin air, they contacted everyone they could think of who had ever crossed paths with Liv Wen, but the responses were either haven't been in touch for a long time or don't know. When Qing found Song Yi, Liv Wen's only close confidant, in a quiet cafe, Song Yi looked at the visibly haggard Wen Qing with his anxious eyes and the silent, brooding Jude Chi beside him, curling his lips into an undisguised smirk of mockery. Well, if it isn't the young master of the Wen family and the great CEO Chi, what brings you here today? Looking for Liv? Song Yi stirred his coffee, his tone icy. Now you're in a hurry. Where was this concern earlier? You had a girl as wonderful as Liv Wen, yet you chose to idolize some white lotus instead. Were your brains crushed by a door or kicked by a donkey? Wen Cheng's face turned livid from the scolding, but he dared not retaliate. Song Yi, we're truly desperate. Liv, she's gone, driven away by all of you, and that hypocritical Noah. When working together. Song Yi cut him off sharply, her gaze piercing. Are you satisfied now? Jude Chi suddenly looked up, his eyes dark and fierce. Song Yi, watch your tone. I know I was wrong to neglect Liv because of Noah before, but Noah, at least her gentleness and thoughtfulness weren't fake. Deep down, he still refused to believe that the girl who always soothed his worries with her soft voice could be a fraud. Gentle, considerate. Song Yi burst into derisive laughter as if hearing the biggest joke in the world. Jude Chi, I used to think you were just blind, but now I realize you're a complete idiot. Noah Wen has been playing you for a fool, and you're still counting money for her. What do you mean? Wen Cheng's heart sank. What do I mean? Song Yi looked at them coldly. If you want to know what kind of person Noah Wen is, why don't you find out for yourselves? Go ask her best friend Jiang Qingqing. See what your beloved innocent flower is really like behind the scenes. Song Yi's words were like a bomb dropped into deep water. Jude Chi and Wen Qing immediately went to Jiang Qingqing's home, without any prior notice. They rang the doorbell directly. The door was opened by Jiang Qingqing, her face still wearing a lingering smile. Her phone was on a video call, and the screen clearly showed Noah Wen's face. Now it's perfect. That eyesore Liv Wen has finally been forced out. From now on, everything in the Wen family, including brother Jude, will be mine. No one can threaten me anymore. Qingqing, don't you think I? Jiang Qingqing's smile froze instantly when she saw Jude Chi and Wen Qing at the door, their faces livid and eyes terrifying, turning into sheer panic. Noah, her hand trembled, nearly dropping her phone to the ground. On the other end of the video call, Noah Wen also noticed the figure at the door, his triumphant voice abruptly cut off, his face turning deathly pale in an instant. With a sharp scream, the video call was abruptly disconnected. And no, young Master Chi, young Master Wen. Jiang Qingqing tried to close the door, but Jude Chi grabbed her wrist. Speak. What exactly did Noah Wen mean just now? Jude Chi's voice was deep and his gaze was cold enough to freeze someone to death. Wen Qing also stared at her intently, veins bulging at his temples under the immense pressure and threats from the two. Noah Wen's so-called best friend completely broke down, confessing through tears and snot. The truth was like the filthiest abscess being lanced open. Noah Wen was never physically weak from birth. After her parents passed away, she set her sights on the affluent Wen family. She meticulously planned to feign fragility and play the victim to gain sympathy. Successfully moving into the Wen household, her goal was clear from the start: to replace Liv Wen as the center of the Wen family and secure Jude Chi, the Golden Bachelor, as her husband. She knew Liv Wen had a straightforward and fiery personality, which would easily lead to friction with Jude Chi. She seized every opportunity to showcase her gentleness and understanding in front of Jude Chi, subtly driving a wedge between the two, making Jude Chi gradually perceive Liv Wen as unreasonable and immature, while positioning herself as the one who could offer him a warm harbor. Forcing Liv Wen to leave was the most crucial step in her plan. Exploiting the Wen family's preference for maturity and their guilt toward her, she repeatedly sowed discord, framed Liv Wen, and escalated conflicts between Liv Wen and her family, ultimately driving Liv Wen to leave in utter despair. Every word Jiang Qingqing spoke felt like a red-hot branding iron, searing painfully into the hearts of Jude Chi and Wen Qing. Their self-righteous judgments, their biased favoritism, every accusation they hurled at Liv Wen and every defense they made for Noah Wen, all became the sharpest blades in Noah Wen's hands, slicing Liv Wen's heart to pieces with each cruel stroke. The two were struck as if by a bolt from the blue. Regret surged over them like a tidal wave, swallowing them whole in an instant. The Wen family villa. When Noah Wen was dragged back to the Wen family by Wen Qing like a dead dog, facing the shocked, furious, and remorseful gazes of Wen Jinghong and Lin Wanrong, as well as Jude Chi's look that seemed to wish she could be torn to pieces. She knew everything was over. Get out. When Jinghong pointed at the door, his hand trembling violently. Take your things and get out of the Wen family immediately. Never let me see you again. Lin Wanrong had already collapsed onto the sofa in tears, beating herself. I was blind. I ruined Liv. Noah Wen watched the chaotic scene. Before her, her face not showing fear but instead twisting into a distorted mix of satisfaction and mockery. She shook off Wenqing's hand, smoothed her disheveled hair, and glanced around the opulent place that could no longer contain her, letting out a shrill laugh. Leave, of course I'll leave, but do you really think pushing all the blame onto me will solve everything? Do you think driving me away will bring Liv Wen back? Dream on. She pointed at Wen's Hanghong. You, always preaching about rules and face. But have you ever given your own daughter even an ounce of trust? You never believed a word she said. You only trusted this outsider playing the victim. Then she turned to Lin Wanrong. And you, my dear aunt, all you care about is having the kind of obedient and well-behaved daughter you want. The moment Liv Wen showed a hint of her own thoughts or temper, in your eyes she was rebellious and immature. Did you ever care about what she truly wanted? Finally, her gaze fixed on Wenqing's face, his eyes bloodshot and fists clenched, her voice dripping with venom. As for you, my dear brother, you're the most hypocritical of all. What you've always wanted is nothing but a docile little sister who lets you flaunt your authority as an elder brother and obeys your every word. Liv Wen's defiance and independence made you feel out of control, made you feel humiliated, so you couldn't wait to cling to me. Your replacement, it was you. You were the ones who pushed Liv Wen away with your own hands, and now you pretend to be heartbroken. Too late. Ha 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 ha. Shut up. Wenqing, struck to the core, lunged forward and slapped Noah Wen hard across the face. Slap. A crisp sound of a slap echoed through the living room. Noah Wen staggered a few steps from the blow, a trickle of blood seeping from the corner of her mouth. Clutching her face, she glared venomously at every member of the Wen family, including Jude Chi, whose face was ashen, letting out a string of wild, shrill laughter. She turned and stormed out of the Wen family's house without looking back. A deathly silence fell over the living room. Noah Wen's words were like a sharp dagger, tearing away the last shred of self-deceptive pretense that the Wen family and Jude Chi had clung to, exposing the bloody, ugly truth beneath. Yes, it was them. It was their repeated distrust, their stubborn preference for the illusion of being sensible. It was they who personally pushed their daughter/sister, the one who would cling to them coquettishly, who would clumsily try to care for them, the vivid and real girl, into the abyss of despair. Overwhelming grief and remorse, like a tangible boulder, crushed everyone. When Jinghong seemed to have aged 10 years overnight, collapsing onto the sofa with hollow eyes. Lin Wanrong's sobs turned into desperate wails. Wenqing covered his face, crouched on the ground, his shoulders shaking violently. Jude Chi stood frozen in place, his entire body cold. Noah Wen's deceit filled him with furious rage, but what tormented him even more was himself. It was he who pushed that girl who had eyes only for him further and further away, until she completely disappeared. That vicious insult, not even a dog would marry you, now echoed repeatedly in his mind, each time bringing excruciating pain like a slow execution. He recalled his childhood self, who had solemnly promised to marry her, now seeming like the biggest joke in the world. In the days that followed, regret drove them to engage in a nearly futile search. The Wen family offered a 50 million reward for information on Liv Wen's whereabouts, creating a sensation that attracted countless opportunists, yet no genuine leads emerged. Jude Chi became almost frantic, neglecting most of his company duties to fly around the world, chasing any possible trace of Liv Wen, only to return disappointed time and again. The immense mental strain and self-torment caused him to rapidly lose weight. His eyes clouded with unshakable gloom and despair. The Wen family's business began to decline as its key figures were consumed by grief and distraction. Wenqing drowned his sorrows in alcohol day after day, trying to numb the gnawing remorse, only to sink deeper into despair. Time crawled painfully through 5 years of hopeless searching and crushing regret until that day the massive LCD screen was broadcasting international financial news. A name and figure both familiar yet utterly foreign exploded like thunder in the deathly silent Wen family living room. The highly anticipated smart home brand Novalink held its global product launch in City H today, where its co-founder and chief product experience officer, Ms. Liv Wen, delivered an outstanding speech. On the screen, the woman stood tall in a pearl-white tailored suit dress, her demeanor cool yet radiating formidable strength. Bathed in the spotlight, she effortlessly articulated the product philosophy in fluent English, shining with dazzling brilliance. That face had shed all traces of youthful naivety and grievance, leaving Only the quiet intensity and sharpness forged through trials. It's live when it's really her. Overwhelming shock and ecstasy instantly swept through the three members of the Wen family. The remote control slipped from Wen Changhong's fingers with a clatter, while Lin Wanrong covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Wen Qing's wine glass shattered on the floor, the liquid splashing everywhere, but he remained oblivious, his entire body trembling as he stared fixedly at the screen. Almost simultaneously, Zhu Qi's phone began vibrating wildly, Wen Qing's name flashing across the screen. He swiped to answer, only to hear Wen Qing's incoherent, tear-choked scream, "Found, Jude, we found Liv, in H City, on TV." The press conference, Zhu Qi's heart felt as if it had been tightly gripped by an invisible hand, then abruptly released, sending blood surging wildly through his veins. He rushed to the television and pulled up the replay when that face, etched into his memory yet utterly transformed, appeared clearly on the screen. The sheer impact made him stagger back a step. He barely managed to steady himself by gripping the table. 5 years after more than 2,000 days and nights of agonizing search, they finally caught sight of her, only in such an unreachable manner. Without any hesitation, the three members of the Wen family swiftly obtained their visas and booked the earliest flight available. Zhu Qi even deployed a private jet, arriving in City H almost simultaneously with the Wen family. Following the news leads, they recklessly stormed into the press conference venue, and after it ended, they blocked the entrance to the backstage lounge. Thus, that heart-wrenching scene unfolded. She saw them, her gaze calm and unruffled, as if glancing past strangers of no consequence. She addressed them as Mr. Wen, Mrs. Wen, Young Master Wen, Young Master Qi. She slipped her hand free from his, the movement effortless, as if brushing away a speck of dust. She said, "Excuse me, please," she said, "I'm done eating, enjoy your meal," then resolutely left. She said, "Someone insignificant," she said, "the version of myself that never bows to the past." Every word she spoke, every glance she cast, every movement she made was like the sharpest ice pick, piercing and shattering the heart they had barely held together with remorse and pain over 5 years. She left, in high heels, her back straight, her steps composed. She walked toward the sunlit corridor, toward a future they could never reach and no longer had the right to be part of. Behind her lay a world in ruins. When Xinghong seemed to have all his strength drained away as he collapsed onto the cold corridor floor, tears streaming down his aged face, murmuring, "Liv, Dad was wrong." Lin Wanrong cried out for her daughter with a heart-wrenching scream, trying to chase after her but was tightly held back by Wen Qing. Mother and son both slid to the ground together, their desperate sobs echoing through the empty hallway. Wen Qing held his mother, his face buried in her shoulder, his body shaking violently as suppressed sobs escaped him like a wounded beast. Zhu Qi leaned against the cold wall and slowly slid down to sit on the floor. He didn't cry, just tilted his head back, staring at the blinding white light on the ceiling, his eyes as empty as a desert. On his wrist, the icy touch of her struggle still lingered. The cruel words, "Not even a dog would marry you," now echoed madly in the dead silence of his mind, accompanied by her final distant and cold "Young Master Qi," plunging him into an abyss of eternal damnation. He knew, he had lost her forever, the one who would carefully give him all her chocolates just to make him smile, who would study math and science relentlessly to get into the same university as him, who would try on dresses in styles she disliked just because he once said they didn't look good, the girl who once shone like a little sun in his life. He personally extinguished all her light and warmth. Later, it was said that Zhu Qi never married. In his lifetime he became even more withdrawn, pouring all his energy into work. Under his iron-fisted leadership, the Qi Group's empire continued to expand, but the loneliness and gloom surrounding him could never be dispelled. The seat beside him remains forever vacant. After being expelled from the Wen family, Noah Wen couldn't bear losing her privileged life. With her fading beauty and cunning, she quickly became the mistress of an elderly tycoon. However, the good times didn't last. She was discovered by the tycoon's lawful wife. The legal wife was ruthless, sending people to break Noah Wen's limbs and completely driving her out of the city. Having lost her only support and being physically disabled, Noah Wen's fate was predictable. She eventually vanished into the mire of the lower society, forgotten by all. The Wen family's fortunes declined day by day. Wen Jinghong's health collapsed under the immense blow and regret, and the company's business plummeted. Lin Wanrong spent her days in tears, her mind in a daze. Wen Qing became a walking corpse, neglecting company affairs, spending his days drowning in alcohol, numbing the bone-deep pain and irreparable mistakes in a drunken stupor. Across the ocean in City H, the sunlight was just right. Liv Wen stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows on the top floor of Novalink's headquarters, overlooking this vibrant city. The assistant handed her the latest market report, which she quickly flipped through with focused and sharp eyes. Occasionally, in an extremely brief moment, a few distant and blurry faces might flicker through her mind, but it was merely a fleeting thought, like a breeze passing over a lake, leaving not a trace behind. Her world had long moved forward, vast and boundless.